My name is Luke. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a city council member here with Mount Rainier, and we just want to welcome you to our solar party. It's a really great event. It's a way for everybody in the community to get some knowledge about how they can invest in solar power. I think it's important for us as a community to figure out how we can get off of fossil fuels, and there's some stuff that the city of Mount Rainier can do, but there's really a lot more opportunity for residents in what they can do. How they can either tell Pepco, give me solar power from some solar producer, or they can put solar panels on their roofs, and there are lots of different options for you to be able to put solar panels on your roof, even if you don't have the cash in hand to make the investment right now. And we're going to have some people who are kind enough to show up tonight that are going to explain all those different options for residents. I also just want to give a huge shout out, a thank you to the Green Team. Joseph Chikuta, standing right next to me. Just been an excellent leader of the Green Team. There's so much that committee does for this city that we are just really in awe of and really thankful for. They don't get paid anything. They're not staff of the city, and yet they produce so much good work on behalf of all the residents of Mount Rainier. So just thank you all for showing up. Thank you to Joseph. Mimi, shout out to Mimi out there. She was part of our kind of solar crew that helped get this together. And she's just always so wonderful. So just thank you guys, and I'll turn it over to Joseph.
Well, thank you all for coming out. We do really appreciate it, and we hope you learn a good amount about how you can go solar and what works best for you from our presenters. We're going to have 3 presenters. I think we decided Lauren's first from Maryland Sun. She's going to talk about sort of general solar installations and in particular solar co-ops. And then we're going to have John, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the solar financing. You're trying to install solar on your house, and then we're going to wrap it up with Armando, who's going to talk about the option where you join a community solar project elsewhere. We're hoping, though, one thing you can do tonight is we left some postcards on your chairs, and there's some pens there. We wanted you to commit to how you are thinking about going solar. Maybe it's just talking to your neighbor about what you learned. Maybe it's installing solar panels, and then leave the cards here, and that'll do 2 things. One, we'll send them to you in 2 weeks to remember, so you remember what you committed to tonight. And second, you'll be in the running for some beautiful solar-powered lights that you probably saw on the way into Joe's tonight. And after that, after the 3 presenters go, people are going to stick around. There's some beer, there's some food. You talk with the installers and one-on-one to answer any more specific questions. And we'll probably wrap up around 9, and there'll be some music afterwards as well. That's it, I guess. Thank you again for coming out tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
So as I was so wonderfully introduced, my name is Lauren. I am the Maryland Program Director for Solar United Neighbors. And usually I do these intro sessions in about an hour and a half, but I was told I have 10 minutes, so here we go. So just a little bit about who we are. We are a nonprofit. My goal is to make it easier for everyone in the state of Maryland to go solar, whether that is through our co-ops, which are basically bulk purchasing campaigns, or whether it's through advocacy at the state or local level, promoting community solar. We have lots of different ways where we help. One of the main ways that we do is through conversations like this and education, just so you all know what your options are and how to go about it. So a little bit about how we got started. We got started with actually, who is now our executive director, Anya Schoolman. She, her son and his best friend went to go see An Inconvenient Truth, and they came home and were like, "Mom, we need to install solar panels." She went, "No." But she looked into it a little more, realized that back in 2007, it was a lot more complicated to go solar than it is now. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of politics involved with it. Not even the utilities knew exactly how to do it. So she told her son, fine, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it with a bunch of people. So those 2 young men right there got 40 of their neighbors in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood of DC together, and they all went solar together in a bulk purchasing way. That way everybody was dealing with one contractor. They were doing it all together, doing the permitting all together, and things like that. It was a special permit for everybody's house, but it was all one educational process, all one movement. I'll probably just keep clicking for now. So we are in 9 states, including the District of Columbia. We count that as one of our states, just so it's technically 8 states, but it's 9. God bless DC. So these are just ways that we help. I have information on all of this. This is usually how I do my presentations. Again, but they're an hour and a half, and I'm not doing that to you tonight. Keep going. So I talked a little bit about how solar panel works, but I only have 10 minutes. So if you want to know exactly how they work, come see me afterwards, or one of the other people that are here. I'm not the only one who knows all of this. You can keep going. Actually, we go till it says questions. So, cool. Everybody here know what net metering is? I know you know what net metering is.
No.
Okay, so
What is?
net metering.
Oh, yeah.
So how net metering works and kind of what it is, it's how the utility company keeps track of how much power you're producing on your roof when you have solar panels on your roof. So you have solar panels on your roof, you are generating electricity. You don't use all of it when either, nobody's home during the day, or if during the day you don't have any lights on, you don't use all the power that you generate. So that power goes back into the grid. Net metering is how the utility company credits your bill for what you have given to them. And in Maryland, it is a 1-to-1 ratio. So it is, if you put 1 kilowatt hour back into the grid, and then at night when your solar panels aren't working, you take 1 kilowatt hour, there's absolutely a 0 net charge from the utility for that. Just because I didn't know this when I first started working with solar, when the power goes out and you have solar, even if it's in the middle of the day, your power still goes out. It isn't, you're not off grid because your system needs to shut off, because if you're putting power onto the grid and you've got a lineman working down the street trying to put power back, you don't want him to get electrocuted. Keep going. I do have information on battery systems back there if you want more information about that. Should be 2 more. Okay, so this is our co-ops. And actually today, because I knew I was doing this event, and I know that we will be launching in more earnest our PG County co-op next month, but I did want to make sure that our PG County website, co-op website was live today. So it is live. If you want to sign up for our co-op today, you can absolutely do that. And this is how our co-ops work. So there's a session like this where you're learning about what it is and what we do. Then there is, and I have this this sheet basically in the back so you guys don't have to memorize it right now. You get a whole bunch of your neighbors together. We are doing this PG County wide. We will send out a request for proposal from installers all across the Mid-Atlantic. As many installers as want submit bids through us. We break them down. We make a pretty Excel spreadsheet so you guys can compare apples to apples. A selection committee of the members of the co-op get together, they choose your installer. That installer gives everybody in the co-op a proposal based on that pricing. Usually it's anywhere from a 10 to 20% savings from like regular market rate that the installer would give you. And it's actually absolutely free of charge to join our co-ops. Usually, again, saves you 10 to 20%, and there's absolutely no obligation to Solar United Neighbors or the other members of the co-op. The only obligation you have is after the installer gives you a proposal, if you sign the contract, then you're obligated to them. That is the only thing. It's just a 1-to-1 as if you were going by yourself. I'm gonna probably stop right there because that is the main thing that I wanted to share with you guys today. The other thing that I will share is that when it comes to things like battery storage, I do have information on that in the back. We do have a membership option which allows you to have kind of all of the benefits of the co-op, but one-on-one. There is a charge for membership. And then the other thing that we do have is we do promote community solar. We're a nonprofit, so I cannot promote a specific project, but we do promote community solar generally. And we have a lot of different projects listed on our website for you guys to compare apples to apples, the different community solar projects. But I know that Neighborhood Sun will be talking a lot more about that today. Yes, ma'am.
So we've had solar checked out and we don't really have the right direction to get a lot of sun. Can we still be part of a co-op or not?
So you can. So there's two things that might happen. So as part of the co-op process, and one of the reasons that installers bid competitively for our co-ops is as soon as you sign up for our co-op, we will do a satellite roof review of your house.
Right.
So we're going to be able to see, hey, maybe. If it's maybe, we let you join the co-op and we let the installers make that final decision. Or we're going to say, you know what, no. You have this big, beautiful oak tree that's just shading your entire roof. It's not going to happen. And in that case, basically what we do is we tell you that your other option is for community solar, and we will give you a link to the community solar information on our website.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you say a bunch of people get together to do the co-op, like what's an average bunch, or what's a small, what's the range, small to?
How much is a bunch?
Yeah.
Okay, so we like to aim for 30 participants in a co-op before we send out for the RFP. In PG County, that is not going to be a problem. But just so you know, I've had co-ops as small as 16 people and as large as almost 200 people.
Okay.
So what that does is, if I've only got 16 people, we tell the installers that. The installers may not bid as competitively. If I tell an installer that we have 200 people, you may only get installers, you're gonna get a competitive bid,
Yeah.
but you may only get installers that can handle that many customers. So it's a give and take, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
And this is throughout PG County, right?
Yes.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, so this will be PG County. We just closed one in Montgomery County. We do them all across the state, but this one will be for PG County.
So they don't have to be close by, they can be anywhere?
Yeah, it can be anywhere in PG County.
Okay, and this is because well, in Highsville, there was a couple of guys in Highsville going door to door talking about this, but I don't think they were talking about being part of a community. They're more like selling the solars, and you were to buy it from them, and you were actually renting it from them.
Right.
And then I was like, what part is it that I'm using from the sun? It felt like, I don't know. Then I was like, wait a minute, I thought it was free. Something has to be free coming down from the sun to me. And he was like, you could put 38, it's gonna be great. You don't have any trees around your house, everything looks perfect. And then when I asked him, he said, you know, your meter would be going backward. And then I said, okay, that sounds good. So I'm not gonna be paying for something, but every month you'll be paying us. I was like, and then I was like, okay, back up. I don't wanna pay.
Confusing.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So that model is called a power purchase agreement.
Okay.
It's more like renting the panels, where basically you're just buying the energy and the panels belong to a separate company. Through our co-op model, honestly, we ask about power purchase agreements and leasing. It depends on what the installer that bids for our co-ops do. 90% of the people that go solar through our co-ops own the panels on their roof outright. It is there, and I know that John's going to be talking about this in a minute. There's a way to finance that without having to do a power purchase agreement or a leasing agreement.
I'm sure there's a huge range, but how much are we talking about to own your own solar panels?
I'm gonna actually say, because I know my time is probably super up, is I have information in the back that gives you some pricing examples. But you're looking at anywhere from after the 30% tax credit and all that stuff, $14,000 to $20,000 for a full size entire home system.
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
$14,000 to $20,000, depending on the size of the system that you need. It could be less than that, it could be more. So I know my time is super up, so I do have plenty of information in the back, and I'm here to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
hi, it's nice to meet
My name is John Mara. I'm with Solar Energy Services. First, want to thank Joe for having me out here. The green team, councilman. It's very cool to see what's going on here. The motivation, and the push towards solar around here is very encouraging to see. I was asked to come out and speak a little bit about financing. I am an installation company, and I designed my presentation to be very locked in around just the financing piece. As the other installation company didn't come today, I'll probably jump a little bit in that bucket too. You know, what we're talking about here is installing panels on your roof. You know, we just talked about a power purchase agreement, leasing agreement. In the 40 years we've been in business here in Maryland, we have never and will never promote those. The real value of solar is in ownership. And you know, unfortunately with partners like Mosaic Financing, you don't need a big lump sum of cash to make that investment these days. So Mosaic Financing is one of the many lenders over the past few years that I've worked with. A lot of these lenders have a similar looking pitch, have a similar looking rate structure. None of them are as efficient and transparent as Mosaic. It's been night and day working with this company and the other companies, and I'm going to show you why. Some of the things that they're looking at: solar. The future of solar is in storage. Right now in the state of Maryland, there's no real parameters to monetize storage as there is in other states. It's really, you have to want storage for resiliency, for when the grid does go down. In the future that may change and there may be ways to monetize that battery, but for right now there's not. What this financing is looking to do is be able to finance solar, storage, and in future other renovations that you may look at.
Sorry, when you say storage, you're talking about batteries?
Yes.
And when you say leasing, you're talking about?
Power purchase agreements or any arrangement where you don't own the panels.
Right, just to clarify.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so, ma'am, you mentioned, you know, having somebody come to your door and knock on the door and talk to you about free solar panels going on your roof. You know, it was great, you know, a few years ago when we had a lot of people out there, a lot of people calling because solar was getting heard. Solar was coming into the conversation. People were thinking about solar. Unfortunately, a lot of people are unhappy with solar because of the deals that they signed in that kind of conversation. What we're seeing is the trend from leasing to ownership is completely flipping. It has flipped, and I think as we see in the coming years, I think there will be very little of those leasing agreements that actually end up happening. There are certain areas and examples of where that would make sense, and that's if there's no ability for somebody to take advantage of any of the tax credit. If somebody's on a fixed income and there's no tax liability that they can take, then there could be a way to sign a deal where somebody else can take that. We can talk more about that later if that's something that you want to learn more about. All right, let's go to the next one. Next one. Go to the next one. All right, so this is where the rubber meets the road with this financing program. This is how the financing works. At the end of the day, we're financing this system because we don't want to make an upfront investment. For whatever reason, we want to spread out the cash. What Mosaic does is it actually amortizes the complete cost of the system at the 70% number to start. So the starting monthly rate will be 70%. What that is expecting is that within 18 months, after you recognize the tax credit, 30% tax credit, they expect that you will pay that exact 30% down to the loan program to maintain your rate.
Could you speak in layman's terms, please?
Yeah.
Because everybody, I think, is shaking their head and saying,
Well,
what?
at least that what you just said, I wasn't sure about.
Okay, sure. So what the structure of the deal, when you finance a system, the financing partner expects that within 18 months, after you've received the 30% tax credit, that you will pay the amount of the tax credit back to the program to maintain that low rate.
So you set up with the customer for paying back 70% of the total, because you're expecting to get the 30% back through the taxes.
Correct. So everything here is between the homeowner and the financing partner, but yes. So that's the only real interesting thing how this works. There's one point of re-amortization. So one point at which you can either pay more than the 30% and have a lower monthly rate, or less and it'll have a higher monthly rate. If you pay exactly the 30%, the rate stays the same. And I just want to explain that before we go into the next slide to kind of show you what some of those cash flows look like. So if you had a bigger system and say, just shy of $30,000, I took a very low cost of energy just to give you kind of ideas of what this would look like. So before solar, you'd be paying $152 a month. This would be a 20-year contract, and before the 18 months, it would be $142. So you say, okay, you're saving basically only $10 there, $10 per month. You own your system.
So does that mean that part of the 142 is going to pay for the system?
So all of the 142. So yes. Sorry, I didn't clarify one other
So
thing.
it's 142 plus the cost of
So it's
electric?
142 is your payment for the system. What we're designing systems here is through net metering, as Lauren pointed out, we're eliminating the electric bill. So if before we were paying $152 for electric,
So you're saying we wouldn't need anything off the grid?
so you're actually still using the grid, but because of net metering, it's crediting. So we're eliminating all of that electric cost. So before we were paying $152 to the electric company, now we're paying $142 back to the financing to owning our solar.
So that's if we don't use more electricity than our solars are producing?
Correct. So if you didn't use more than was expected before, if you did, you would just end up paying.
Paying a little bit more.
So
Paying.
are you dimensioning the system so that you expect
Yes.
that it's covered? Because I have a friend who had to work really, really hard to get to the net of metering.
To 100% of their usage,
Yeah,
or
right. Maybe
Yes.
it wasn't big enough, but it was a hard slog.
Yes,
To
that's
not have to pay more for the
Yeah,
electric
yeah,
company?
yeah. I don't know what system he had, but I remember that he was like, I have to reduce this, I have to reduce that in order to make it.
It wasn't what he expected, it sounds like.
He went probably a little too low in the beginning.
Too small a panel, too small a
Yeah.
system.
So that's obviously a very important part of my job, is looking at what you've used over the past year, 2 years, and make sure that we know what your usage pattern is. I look at things, are you planning on getting an electric car? Is there gonna be more usage in the future? And then designing that system. Designing that system and putting conservative estimates based on your exact roof, the materials we're using, what that system's gonna produce.
So then for 18 months, we'd be paying the 142 or whatever.
142, and yeah.
And
with-
after that,
And after that, so what that showed is actually on the slide before, it showed that we would pay down, so the payment, the 30% tax credit was not paid here. So your rate would go from 142 to 203.
if you don't use the 30%.
If you don't pay the 30%, so if you wanted to take that and do something else with it, your rate would go up. It's financing like anything else. It's in your best interest to try and pay down as much in the front to avoid interest on the back as you can. So that's why that 18-month point is very important. Here, we have an example of the same situation, eliminating the electric bill, $142 at the 18-month period. The 30% credit was paid to the company, so $142 continues on
After the 18 months?
after the 18 months. So because you paid the 30% credit to the company, your rate stays the same.
For how long?
So this is a 20-year. There's 10, 15, and 20-year options.
I see. So it's 142 for 18 months, considering that you'll give the 30% tax credit to the company.
Correct.
If you don't, then it goes up
Correct.
It's like you're paying
You
up
pay for it.
for the rest of the 20 years.
Correct. So they're giving you basically 1 point to pay down principal and avoid interest, and that's at 18 months. So if in 20 months we say, hey, we want to pay down 10,000 to it, it's actually not going to save you any interest. It's going to shorten your payments. So that 18-month point is something to really recognize and understand how that works. Yes.
You're like
got a great powered system and you're super frugal with your use, do you ever get money back from the electric company?
So you absolutely can. Up until 100%, it is evaluated on an annual basis. So in the spring, summer, fall, we over-generate. In the winter, depending on your appliances, you can under-generate. If at the end of the year they say you over-generate on 2,000 kilowatt hours, they're going to pay you. What they're going to pay is called their non-generated cost. It's their wholesale cost. So it's the cost of what the utility company, who's usually just distributing power, would buy from somebody else. Long and short, it's about half the cost of retail. So if you're paying 13, 14 cents, 6.5 or 7 cents.
But they do it on a yearly basis, not like a monthly basis.
Correct. So it'll allow you to roll over credit to the next month, which is in most cases very favorable when if you have high usage in the winter, because that kind of flip-flops with your generation. Generation will be lower in the winter and your usage will be higher.
Sir?
Yeah.
But when they do the net metering, do you sell the electricity to the utility company at the same price you buy electricity
Yeah, it's
from? Or
So with net metering, yes, it's a little tricky, but from a day-to-day basis, you're over-generating during the day, your meter's rolling backwards, you're pulling from it at night. So it's a credit system. It's basically 1 for 1, and it's keeping a bank and saying, on a monthly basis, it'll say you over-generated 800 kilowatt hours, roll on to the next month. So it'll put it in a bank. There's one point during the year that they'll recognize what's in the bank and say, okay, you over-generated, we're gonna compensate you for that. If you under-generate on any given month, though, you'll just pay the difference in that month. Yes.
Those rates, are those the hourly rates or are they the kind of averaged over a month bill?
So, I'm not sure I quite understand.
There are no time of day rates.
Pepco's buying its energy hourly.
Correct.
So the price fluctuates hourly.
Correct.
So are these, when you're pulling back from the grid, how is that calculated? Is it that, at the day of the month that we're going to settle the bill, it's that cost, or?
So the only reason you would be looking at any cost would be if you under-generated, right? So essentially.
Or cost is a bad word. The dollar amount that either they give you or take from you, how is that calculated?
With which rate?
With which rate?
Calculated for like financial planning or?
No, the bill.
No.
It's
So it
What
sounds
you
the
like.
residential
pay.
rates are flat rate. We do not have time of day
Okay.
metering in Maryland.
So it's the PSC rate.
Right,
Okay.
right.
No,
But
but
part
he
of,
was,
But
part
rates
of
do
the rate,
fluctuate.
but part of the rate is for distribution, right?
Yes.
So that's why when we get reimbursed for any credit, it's only like half of the amount that we would pay for it upfront.
So that's over 100%. And I think where the missing point is what we're considering is what our recognized value is of a moving rate when it's really a credit system. We've paid for our solar, the solar's generating, so we're not paying for any of that energy. Unless you're asking on a month, on any given month, if we under-generated, we would pay the current utility rate.
And if we over-generated, they would give us one.
So the
About half of
non-generated
that.
cost, right?
All right, and that does fluctuate.
And that does fluctuate, and that's calculated at the current rate of that when it
Thank you.
happens.
I have a
Okay,
question.
sorry. Now I understand what you were asking.
Well, could I say something there?
Sure.
It doesn't fluctuate on an hourly or daily basis. With Pepco, it's just a summer rate and the rest of the year rate.
But the
So-
wholesale rate does fluctuate hourly.
Right, but that's not what they're paying you. They're paying you a flat rate in the springtime before they go up to summer rates. They usually do their annual payoff in the spring before they go to
When
summer
they pay
rates.
less.
Wanted to make sure we got to the next person,
Yeah.
so maybe we can
Yeah.
start answering.
Happy to talk through all these after.
Yeah, maybe some of the specific questions.
Sorry, that was more like a pretty expensive system.
So that's a bigger system. Yeah, that absolutely is definitely a bigger system. And I can kind of surmise this quickly. Why would you want to finance your system? Why would you want to own your system? What's the difference? You know, it looks like on most size systems, you're only saving $10 to $15, maybe $20 a month. That's not something to, you know, jump up and down and go crazy. One, obviously, we're committed to going solar. We're excited about that and doing our part. Two, owning your system gives you the opportunity to be transforming that payment to equity in your house. You know, that's the real conversation is we're improving as an asset in our house. The value of the house is unbelievably recognized right now, and they're really trying to quantify this without comps in the market, but a lot of the general consensus is that you're looking for systems that meet all the quality standards, a dollar for dollar return on your investment at the time of selling your house within the warranty of the system.
Well, one question though, what happens after your 10 years or your 20 years is up? What happens? You don't have any payment anymore, correct?
Correct.
So then you get a real savings.
So that's yes. So selling the system, but also if we're financing the system over 10 years, when we've paid all the payments in the 10 years, year 11, we have no electric cost and no cost to the financing company.
How long do these systems last?
So it depends on the manufacturer, depends a lot also on the installation. So it depends on, there's a lot of different.
You might pay over 20 years and then in the 20 years, they don't really work anymore?
So most materials, inverters, panels are warranted for at least 25 years. They're pulling panels, you know, that were made in the 60s off of buildings and looking at the degradation of those panels and seeing it consistent. Technology and manufacturing, as you can probably imagine, has come a long way. You know, I have no problem telling you that I expect panels to be producing every bit of 50 years. It's just going to be a conversation in 25 years of what else is out there now. And you know, while we had 20 panels powering it 25 years ago, there might be one panel that could do it. And, you know, I don't have a crystal ball, but there's.
It's like a cell phone.
Exactly. Exactly. So I know we probably have to shut it down.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure you guys have time to talk one-on-ones, but yeah, if there's one or two more questions, we can do that.
Sir.
Maybe I missed this earlier, but you talked about sort of being prepared for the moment when in Maryland you can store your energy and you can have a battery on front. So how does that look? Like 10 years down the line, in Maryland you can start storing your energy so that when the grid goes down, you can still retain your power. Is that going to be is your argument that that's going to be as seamless as possible to get into storing your electricity with the way you guys install the solar panels?
Yes. So if I'm hearing you correctly, we're talking about a retrofit. So
yeah.
10 years. If we go solar now, putting battery in 10 years,
right.
Absolutely. That already is available. There's many systems that do that, come in the line and can be charged by the solar, also by the grid and kind of intermediary.
I'd like to add to that. I actually have a system and I got a battery thinking I could bank. But it's really only for when power goes down.
Yep.
And it's the only time the state of Maryland allows you to use that battery. And even at night, because I was hoping that I could use it at night and still not have to pay for kilowatts. But they don't allow you to use it at all. And I'm just wondering, when do you foresee that happening? Or
So,
do you see it anytime in the future?
Great question. I know you have a battery too. You know, batteries, we're right at the beginning of this whole battery market with electric vehicles and everything else. When batteries are going to be able to be used and will be very great to have is when the net metering agreement shifts. So net metering right now is legislation that says we're compensated at retail up to 100% and then wholesale over 100%, correct? And when that shifts, there's going to be either a way to monetize not exporting power, or that's when you're going to be able to use your battery more to monetize, I guess it's.
When that legislation?
When that legislation shifts.
Is there any, so I imagine you want to vote for Ben Jealous if you want that legislation. But has there been any bills produced by the state of Maryland on that front, or do you see the General Assembly attacking that anytime soon?
I know she's just as involved in the industry association as I am.
I'd like to put my 2 cents in. It is more economical for net metering to be 1-to-1 like it is right now than it would be for it not to be. So it's actually better for people who have solar on their roofs to have the legislation exactly like it is than to change it. Not being able to use your battery at night, you actually would, if you were to do that, instead of taking from the grid, you'd actually lose money, not gain money. Simply because batteries, you're gonna lose a little bit in efficiency in the transfer of the charging and depleting, whereas net metering is exactly one-to-one and it has to be by law. So just to make that clear, so we actually don't want that in legislation,
Okay.
and it wouldn't be state legislation, it would be through the PSC, which is the Public Service Commission. So that hasn't happened yet, and one of the things that we actually do, and installers work with us to do this all the time, is actually to fight with the PSC so that doesn't happen, because it makes solar more economical. It makes solar cheaper in the long run for you guys to do. So I just wanted to make that clear.
So there's no time clock on net metering. They didn't say this is the day we're going to decide, which kind of brings a little ambiguity into when it's going to happen. But there is an aggregate size cap. So when a certain amount of solar is installed in the state of Maryland, that net metering requirement will go basically up for renegotiation. In many other states, big solar states, Hawaii, California, you'll see that those net metering conversations have shifted completely. Hawaii, you cannot push any power back onto the grid because so many people are generating there.
Yeah.
That's when a battery is going to come into play.
So you may lose the revenue aspect of it, so it might make less sense financially, but it does pull people off the grid and enable, so if the grid's producing power from natural gas or wherever, it does pull people off of that
It will.
energy source. So it's a trade-off. It's less financially viable, but we're getting you off the grid.
And the opportunity, obviously, is to recognize getting that net metering contract as it is right now.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm happy to take any more specific questions after. I want to let my friend Armando here talk about all he's got going on. Thank you guys very much.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name is Armando, and I work with Neighborhood Sun. We are basically implementing this brand new law in Maryland that allows people that cannot install solar panels on their own rooftops, that don't have a suitable rooftop to use, to go solar on their own, but still get to benefit from solar energy, because we believe that solar energy needs to be accessible and equitable, more equitable. The benefits need to be distributed among a bigger audience, right? So yeah, you can move ahead. So next one. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Neighborhood Sun, who we are, and why we do this job. Neighborhood Sun is your friendly local clean energy social enterprise. We put members, which are the subscribers, above all other solar partners. How we do that is really by interfacing with them and just making sure that everything is done correctly with the utility as well as with the solar developers. Now, I'm going to introduce what a solar developer is and what kind of role it has, but we basically focus only on community solar projects. We focus only on that because we want to bring a sense of community around solar. And what that really look like is that you do not need to have your individual installation, but you tap into a shared solar array off-site. We're a certified B corporation, and we basically, that's a certification for a social enterprise. We focus on sustainability and social justice at 360 degrees, inclusivity and transparency in all we do. That's our core values. Yeah, move ahead. What is community solar? So community solar is really, it's a little bit of a, well, you heard a lot of technical and interesting, but also complicated stuff with rooftop solar. I'm gonna make it a little more complicated. No, I'm kidding. So, no, it actually becomes a little bit easier when you think about it. Although those wonderful net metering mechanism that you heard from before, it's a little more offsite, it's a little bit more at the distance. All of it together, joining a solar project is less complicated. So Neighborhood Sun basically manages this solar project that is a large solar project that produces power for a few hundred people. All right, produces power for a few hundred people, And all this power that is generated over there is sent to the local utility company, in this case Pepco. We have a local solar project in Fort Washington that is interconnected with the Pepco grid. And the local utility company just redistributes that electricity everywhere. All right, everywhere within the grid. Doesn't really matter where that electricity goes, wherever it's needed within the Pepco grid. So what that happens though is that subscribers to that solar project, each of them has a little bit of a little slice of a share of that solar project they subscribe to. They get the solar credits and therefore also the monthly savings like you would have rooftop solar. Like you would have rooftop solar, you subscribe to the amount of panels you need for your utility, for your consumption, and you get a majority of it covered by that subscription. So in this way, we want to build stronger communities by bringing more sustainable local clean energy supply that does not only burn coal or natural gas or is nuclear. But yeah, so like we're interconnecting, we're managing this solar project that one at a time cleans up the grid at a bigger scale than just one rooftop at a time, right? Go ahead with the next one. Any question, please interrupt me anytime, okay? So what that means really for the consumers, I pick always a BG&E bill, which is not a Pepco one. They operate in Baltimore County, and Arundel County, because it's very simple. It's laid out in one page, while Pepco is laid out in 2 pages. And so it takes a little bit, but this is about really virtual net metering. So while you were, where you were getting into the nitty-gritty details of net metering for your rooftop system, same thing applies with virtual net metering. So it's not a physical thing. Nothing is attached to your home. There's not going to be any upgrade or a modification down to your household. Doesn't really matter where you live. Doesn't really matter how your rooftop look like. Doesn't really matter if you're a tenant. Okay. So you're still getting these credits rolled into your bill virtually, because there is no physical attachment, but it's virtual. All right. So you're subscribed. The utility knows you're subscribed, and you're getting these credits rolled into your bill. Yes.
So you're paying your subscription to Neighborhood Sun, and
Yeah.
Pepco is giving you credits in return.
There you go. Yes, exactly. So you're basically paying for that energy that is credited onto your BG&E or Pepco bill, whatever your utility is in Maryland. You're paying to Neighborhood Sun at a discounted rate. You're paying for all the energy that is provided to you in a form of credit, so you're avoiding to pay the utility. You're paying to Neighborhood Sun at 5% below. That's our basic offer. You go ahead, next one. So in this way, what we're really aiming to is to have the largest array, the biggest array of, that's interesting, okay. The biggest, more people need to benefit from solar energy. That's the goal here. This community solar law has been hard fought by Maryland Solar United Neighbors and other solar advocates and other environmental advocates to bring, more people into the solar conversation and having them to subscribe and to enjoy the benefits of solar energy locally, right? So renters, condo owners, people who shade their own suitable roofs, those are the typical examples, or small business that do not control their own roof would be able to subscribe. Next slide. So what that really means for your day-to-day and for your monthly bill is that you're subscribing for a 5-year agreement to buy energy from us, from that shared solar project that is in Prince George's County, is in Fort Washington. I have some flyers over there. Our electricity price is guaranteed 5% below Pepco. So right now, Pepco, summer and winter rates are different, as someone else pointed out. Thank you, sir. That's a good clarification. We stay always 5% below either summer or winter rates. They renew the rates every year. We look at the rates, they're publicly, they're public, so everyone can review them, and we apply 5% discount. End of story. If you move within Pepco, from Mount Rainier you go to Hyattsville, Silver Spring, wherever there is still Pepco, you take the subscription with you to the next household
Within Maryland.
within Pepco, Maryland. Within Pepco, Maryland. So if you go to
But
Baltimore,
not in DC, like.
not in DC,
Okay,
that's
but
right.
within the Pepco jurisdiction of Maryland.
Of Maryland, yeah. So that comprises only Montgomery County and Prince George's County. Not completely all of these counties are within Pepco, but definitely all Pepco, Maryland is within those two counties, yeah. So not Pepco DC, yeah, so you can just transfer the subscription to the next Pepco county you go to. If you move out of Pepco, then you just give us a 60 days notice to cancel. You're free and clear. Do not pay any cancellation fee. If there is any other reason to pay cancellation fee, we obviously want to work out all the problems that might be with crediting your bill, or like if the solar facility is down. We just make every step to make you happy. If there is any reason for you to cancel, there is a cancellation fee of $250. But that's the only reason why. If otherwise, it's very flexible. You take it with you. You cancel if you need to move out of the Pepco area. And we basically assign the right amount of panels to your household that is forecast to cover at least 75% up to 100% of your energy usage. So we review, just like any other solar business, we will review your electricity usage and past the 24 months and say, well, Armando here needs 10 panels. Mary needs 20 panels, and Joseph needs 30 panels because you consume more electricity, all right, Joseph? So yeah, so like everyone has got its own slice of electricity, basically, from solar energy. And yeah, there are really only two requirements, literally, that you pay a Pepco Maryland bill, and you have a credit score of at least 680 that we do have to check. As you know, as you figured out, there is a separate building. So we're not integrated. This community solar subscription is not integrated within the Pepco bill. Although you do not have any upgrade or modification on your house, there is still a separate bill. So whatever you avoid to pay Pepco, you will pay to a separate billing through automatic payments to Neighborhood Sun at a discounted rate.
And
But
we
there
won't
has
get
to
a
be a
credit on the
second.
Pepco bill. I mean, we won't get charged on the Pepco bill as well.
You will be charged much less for whatever the energy your solar share has produced that month. Yeah, and so we're sizing it to meet at least 75% of your historical usage. Yeah, go ahead, thank you. So yeah, sign up process. Basic info, yeah, where you're located, your zip code, your name. We just have different utilities because we are different projects in Maryland. So we have the Baltimore project, we have the Eastern Shore project, we have the Pepco project. So yeah, terms of the project are all listed there on the website, and we need your Pepco account number and your payment details, as well as Social Security, so that we can run the credit score, the credit check, so that we can check this credit score is at least 680. I put it out there all the time because it's a requirement that we must have, so that yeah, the financiers for a project basically are happy. In other words, yeah, we review your historical electricity usage, and we tell you right after that what is going to be your subscription size. If it's 10, 15, 20 panels, whatever they are. Yeah, go ahead, next one. Yeah, so any questions, or I can move ahead in another part of the presentation if you want to. But let me just address one that is usually asked. What if I am on a different electricity supplier? It doesn't matter. Just really doesn't matter. However your consumption from the Pepco bill is charged, doesn't really matter whether you're still on the default rate with Pepco or you subscribe to one of the hundreds of electricity suppliers that are out there. We do not touch that part of the bill. What we offer, just like rooftop solar, is that those credits rolled into your bill and offset those consumption charges. So we don't really mind whether you are with a supplier or not. The supplier also does not mind whether you are with a community solar subscription or not.
So basically what
Yeah.
we would get from the electricity that would come to us based on our number of panels,
Mhm.
would offset what the charge would be from the wind energy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you're saying.
But not, yes, exactly. But not just the charges from your electricity supplier, because wind and all other
Might be
electricity
more.
supplier. No, yeah, it might be more, but also they only charge specific parts of the bill. They only cover the wholesale rate that John was referring to before. So only the generation and transmission part. And if you could go back to the BG&E bill, actually I can show you that. Okay, perfect. So BG&E electricity supply, if you were with a wind contract or with like Constellation, any other electricity supplier, they will be written here. That's your generation and transmission cost. All these other charges are not covered by your electricity supplier because these are local charges. This is the local distribution, and these are local Maryland taxes as well as Prince George's County taxes, that has an energy tax. So those are all not covered. With the credits from rooftop or community solar, they offset all of those. Okay, not just the wind or the electricity supply. So that's one key part. And same arrangement, Maryland utilities, yeah, because that's the law in Maryland. Yeah.
You
Go
have
ahead.
actually done this in other communities, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like in Montgomery County or Virginia or whatever. And what's the feedback that you're getting from people who have
Well-
done this method of
Mhm.
solar?
We have a few hundred subscribers so far.
Uh-huh.
Actually, who has subscribed already in this room, huh? Okay, Luke has subscribed.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I can talk, so I obviously wanted to go solar, was not sure if I could afford to buy solar or didn't really understand the option for leasing solars. But I thought this was just a really kind of simple way to say yes to solar. And what results is basically, so he says a 5% discount on the electricity that they produce, right? So your bill is basically split. The electricity that Neighborhood Sun produces, which is 75–80% of my electricity use, and then the remaining 20% that Pepco produces for me. And I get a 5% discount on that 75%. So my overall bill is about 3–4% lower than it otherwise would have, and that's guaranteed. So my bill already is guaranteed to be lower. Now the annoying part, it's not really that annoying once you set up direct debit, is that I get two charges, one to Neighborhood Sun and one to Pepco. But because it's just direct debit, every month I'm saving a little bit of money and I'm supporting solar power. So it's been really useful for our family.
Thank you, Luke. Yeah. So yeah, we have around 400 subscribers right now within all Pepco area. Yeah, and we need more.
So
Yeah.
how
Go
long
ahead.
have you been around?
We've been around, we've been doing education and outreach about community solar for the last couple of years. And finally, this is the very first year when we have projects. And we're the very first one to actually have launched projects. We have projects all over Maryland, basically, yeah.
And where would our project be? If I'm
Fort
in Mount
Washington.
Rainier? Fort Washington.
Fort
There's a-
Washington.
So there's a great big solar field out there?
That's right. There is an old ex-landfill that is not used. There is no purpose to that piece of land, basically. You cannot use it for development or agriculture. And yeah, so like there is going to be a huge field that will work for about 800, 900 subscribers, more or less. Yeah, it depends on each subscription size, obviously. But
You said there's
yeah.
going to be, or there is?
In January,
Yes, sir.
and so we are building it right now.
Oh.
That's being built right now. We need to find subscribers first, so that by the time we flip the switch, then all the power will be sold. Otherwise, there is nobody else that buys that power. The utility does not buy the power, does not compensate us in any way.
So where is Luke's solar
Yeah, where-
energy coming from?
So Luke's has subscribed to that Fort Washington facility as a share within the Fort Washington facility. Nothing has changed on his house, nothing at all.
Right,
so
but
you
the
still
Fort Washington facility is not in operation yet.
Yeah, no. You, as I said, we need to find first the subscribers. When we fill all the capacity of that project, then we've sold all the subscriptions. Then that project can actually go online because we know who to sell that energy.
Where is your
basically,
current,
right?
where is your
Because-
current field? Where are you currently getting the power?
Excuse me?
Where are you currently getting the power?
From Pepco. Nothing has changed on your household. Again, nothing has changed on your household. Always
So basically,
Pepco.
this is like a contract. that
So
you-
there's no active solar field now?
There is no output of solar field right now.
Okay,
No,
got it.
there is in January 2019. That is in January 2019.
Okay.
We need to find the subscribers first. We are halfway there, and we find many more, and then we have a ribbon cutting ceremony, and yeah, and we'll be producing power. Yes, sir.
I think you said this, but just to be sure, what is the subscriber's upfront cost?
Oh, the upfront cost. I didn't say anything about the upfront cost, right? Well, that's because it's zero.
Okay.
There is nothing to say about it. There is nothing to say about it. There is no investment. There is no deposit. There is no upfront fee. Nothing at all. You just need to subscribe with us and have the benefits of solar energy with that 5% discount. Again, the sign-up process requires your social security for the credit score, as well as the payment details, and then you're off to go with an automatic subscription to that power. That's it.
So you are financing the project? So
Oh.
you're taking loans?
Yeah. We are not taking loans.
Who is financing the project?
Nautilus Solar. This is the solar developer. Nautilus Solar. It's a solar company that has actually, developed the project and will be installing it itself. So that's the upfront cost. It's all on them, and obviously the long-term investment, it's all on them. So we do not develop or we do not own the project. We do customer management, we do marketing, we do sales, customer management over time. And we'll be there for you all the time for the account management, in a few years.
I have a question. Can you have that and also have solar panels in your house?
Yes, you can. So so solar panels, obviously, it covers a certain amount of your bill. It covers as much as whatever your panels has produced. What those panels do not produce, you can subscribe with us. And you still have your sized system, and the right number of panels that will cover as much as possible your consumption that is not covered by rooftop solar. Right?
So do you just go to your website to sign up?
Just go to your website if you like. Basically there is that lead form over there. I can set up an appointment with you right now. All sorts of ways.
Did you come out to our house and look at our roof and?
Not really.
No.
No, I not really mind. You may be living in a beautiful house, but no offense, but do not come to anyone's house because.
You don't need to. Just look at the
Yeah.
account. Yeah, just look at the account. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. We just look into your usage, how many
usage.
kilowatt hours you have been using, and then we size it. for
And
you.
make sure we have good credit.
Make sure you have good credit. Yeah, be paying your bill, Mimi.
I occasionally, I try to do it at least 3 or 4 times.
Thank you for reminding me that. Yeah.
But you say
there
you
is-
can.
Okay, so
You said
anyone.
you're gonna look at all the bills because you were saying that sometimes I know the usage fluctuates. It depends on if you
Yeah.
use them.
Weather.
It will always fluctuate. Yes.
So I guess if you look at the Pepco number, it'll get you all the nice information.
Exactly. It's always a guesstimate. Whenever you're sizing a rooftop system, nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. We only know what's the past, right? So whatever the past has been, 10,000 kilowatt hours, that's more or less an average for Maryland, and therefore we size the system, to your share to 10,000 kilowatt hours. If it's being different, then it's going to be different. But we cannot forecast, Now I do know of someone that subscribed, for example, their solar system had been down for a while, and we'll take that in consideration, because then it will be like when she replaces the inverter, then she will be producing more power, right? So I consider that because I know this person, she's pointed it out, or she has maybe the plan to buy an electric vehicle, So all of these things can be factored in. Yeah.
Electric vehicle, yeah.
Or electric vehicles draw a lot of power from the grid. Yeah. Go ahead.
But what if I've only lived in my house for, let's say, 14 days?
14 days, great question. Yeah, there is an average.
Theoretically.
That's a curveball. That's a curveball right there.
So how do you get the history of the usage?
Yeah. So no, but there is an average of electricity that depending on your square footage, whether you're living in an apartment or you're living in a single-family home. There is, depending on your square footage, there is a more or less a ballpark of what an average Maryland home consumes, and we're going off of that at the beginning. And then we will size it, we'll see whether the credits are too much, too less, or we'll readjust it.
So what if the credits are too much, I guess you would?
Reduce your share.
You guys
So yeah, you reduce the share, yeah. Instead
So
of
you
having
only
20
get it
pounds, you
what
have like, I don't know, 15?
And that's
Yeah.
adjustable within the contract period? That's
Yeah, within the
adjustable.
5 years. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Our aim is not to sell you any extra energy because, as John pointed out, if you are buying extra energy you do not need, then it will be compensated onto your bill at a lower rate.
Right.
So you will not be happy, right? You will not be happy because you will be paying actually extra, right? So you don't want to have that. You want to have it undersubscribed. That's why 75%.
Yeah.
That's for that
It's
reason.
better to owe a little bit to Pepco to get the most economical use of it.
In other ways, yeah. In other ways, exactly. Mhm.
And, I mean, I'm sure I just was out of the room, but the really cool thing, or one cool thing, is that you don't have to own your house. You can be renting.
Mhm,
You can
mhm.
be in an apartment.
Yeah.
You can be in your house. It isn't like a lot of the other solar systems where
You have to have a-
it's about your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So you pay a
open
Pepco
for
bill.
anybody.
Yeah. It's open for everyone. Yeah. As long as you pay a Pepco bill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Another
Again.
weird question.
Another weird question.
Another weird question. What if your name is not on the Pepco bill? Because my parents left us the house, and we're 13 people in one house, and they left us the house.
Okay.
They went back home, and we paid for everything for the house.
Ah, okay.
But because it's me and my brother, they haven't actually said, signed away anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how would that go?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think Pepco needs to transfer the account to the next person. So like you need to have a change of a name.
Mhm.
Typically adding one name to the Pepco bill, it's
So
pretty
it would
easy.
okay,
But I'm not really sure about replacing the
would be
name.
the same.
But adding, I am by myself and then I want to add my buddy or my wife to the Pepco bill, it's pretty easy to have that extra person. I'm not really sure about replacing me out of the situation. So yeah, we need to contact Pepco customer service in that case. They
Yeah.
will tell you
Yeah.
the best answer for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so any other question, I'm always available. Over there, you can put down your contact information and then I'll give you a phone call later in the week or next week. And I'm glad the mayor has joined us.
I want to say
Hello,
so sorry.
Good evening.
Thank you. So sorry I'm late, but I had another meeting that I had to go to. But I knew Luke would be here. Where's Luke? He's here somewhere. He has been assigned solar as his responsibility, but it's been a goal of mine for the last 12 years. So I'm glad to see the interest and see everybody here. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Thank you, Armando.
Thank you, guys.
I want to thank everyone again for coming out tonight. I hope you learned a lot from Armando, Lauren, and John. So we're not done yet. So here's what's going on now. For those of you that aren't here, we left you all a postcard. We're hoping that before you go, you can write down how you're going to go solar and your address on there. And we have some pens over at the green team's portion of the table next to Armando. And then we'll mail them to you in about 2 weeks to remind you about how you decided you were going to go solar. We, of course, have refreshments in the back, some beer from Solar Powered Atlas Brewery. We have some food that Mimi put together. We're going to have some solar-themed music, and of course, our three presenters are over here to answer all of your questions, because everyone had a lot of great questions, and I'm sure there's some more. So we'll wrap up around probably a little after 9, around 9.